transition to the case of Ronan McNally, who was one of a number of defendants, but very much the central defendant in a whole raft of cases brought against him by the Irish Horseracing Regulatory Board this week. There were 10 charges brought. He was found guilty of the majority, and a whole range of interesting charges relating to the running and riding of horses in his yard, including the Real Deal and the Jam Man, two very high-profile horses, Dave. He feels he's been victimised as the small man, and that horses are not run on their merits day in, day out in Ireland as part of getting them handicapped, particularly in maiden hurdle races, and that he's been singled out. How do you feel about that?
I can see the point that horses are run to get handicapped regularly, blah, blah, but these are extreme cases, aren't they? These are Grade 1 horses that got handicap ratings so low originally. And I thought we've seen the working out, the IHRB committee. Sorry, we've seen the conclusion. We haven't seen the working out. That's what we need to see. We have not seen the written reasons. We need to see the written reasons, because there's some remarkable conclusions that your horses weren't schooled properly through the starting stalls. How do you prove that? I thought it was really interesting that they'd used experienced handicappers who said that they had never seen this level of improvement before. They brought in third parties, seemingly external third parties, to rule on this.
There's been a subsequent statement from the IHRB as well, Darren, which is sort of almost saying that this is a bit of a shot across the bows of everybody in racing as to how they run their horses. Do you see this as a bit of a watershed case, as someone who, as you said earlier in the programme, liked to land a few touches with horses who you knew were worth a little bit more than the handicap marks they were running off?
This case seems as if there's a lot more to it than this. I think it's just not the particular running of these horses. They've been watching this for a while. I don't know, because I'm not, I don't watch Irish racing all the time, but I think, like we spoke about before, in novice hurdles, maiden hurdles, most of them in a novice hurdle, probably only in a runner of 15, 16 runners, probably only 4 of them are really can possibly win. Well, that's just the nature of young horses and them getting educated and coming to the course, because you can't do everything with them at home.
But it's a question of whether the whole culture, I suppose, Paddy, of the game is going to change, of whether people will be censured more for concealing horses' ability levels from the handicapper.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It really is. But like Darren said, in Ireland, you look at a lot of them novice herds at Willie and Gordon, only 3 horses can win. And difficult one.
Is it not the same here? If you have a 16-runner novice hurdle at Newbury, only Henderson's odds-on shot and Paul or Dan's second favourite realistically has any shot.
Yeah,
and the others are strung out, beating 40, 60, 80, 90 lengths, and there'll be horses winning handicaps in there somewhere down the line, but you're not going to want to finish too close on the one that you know is only 120 horse.
Sometimes you have no choice, that's just the way it is, but yeah.
Okay.
Something I don't get too involved in. Just do my best.
I thought what was interesting, the inside information, which Ronan denies, was for people to back the horses, not lay. And that's the first time I've seen that in a charge. It's usually information that they're laying on there. This was backing to win.
Well, don't get into that subject, because I have a strong opinion on that. As soon as they allowed you to back a horse to lose, that was where all the problems started. You should not be able to lay a horse at all. Should not be allowed. Back him to win, not to lose. Let's just really simplify it. If you stop that, you can only back a horse to win. Think of all the problems that would stop.
But what about every bookmaker?
What do you mean?
Who are laying every horse to lose all the time?
I mean, as an owner and a punter, if you can go in, it'd be very easy, wouldn't it, as an owner? I've never laid a horse in my life.
But you're not allowed to lay your horse to lose.
Correct, but I never would. I just think it's wrong. So
you think that culturally, to allow everybody to lay horses has changed the game?
Absolutely, I do. Absolutely.
And the flip side of that argument would be that there's an audit trail for ne'er-do-wells, and actually there's less skullduggery in the sport than there was pre the exchanges.
Well, what do you think's simpler? For somebody to know their horse is going to win a race, or know it's going to finish out the first 3?
Well, I would accept that argument. The interesting thing here, as Dave was saying, is that the charge is passing information to back a horse to win.
Yeah.
And that, again, opens up a really interesting grey area as to, you've got a horse that you really fancy on a given day.
Yeah.
I ring you up and say, do you fancy this? And you go, yeah, should run well. I back the horse, you've passed me inside information. Now, most people within the confines of horse racing would think, fine, wouldn't they? But of course, people outside looking in think, oh no, that's insider trading. Now, does the whole culture of the sport now shift to the letter of the law?
It's really difficult, like you just said. You could be talking in a pub to somebody, how do you think your horse will run tomorrow? I could say, I think he'll need the run. And then somebody goes off and lays your horse. It's just impossible. What can you do? Do you have to just say nothing? You're not allowed to be honest about how you think your horse will run? You see how that's really difficult?
I think there's a difference, isn't there, Dave, between passing inside information and passing inside information for reward?
Yes, definitely. And I think most trainers, most owners will have people coming up to them at the table in a pub, how's this horse going to, and most will come up with, hopefully being the first 6, they come up with a bland lie. But there is some people who, look, if I give you a few quid here, let me know when this one's going to win. And I think that's the element that we're getting. I mean, if it's a punishment to telling somebody to back your horse, this is why I want to see the written reasons. Are going to be fascinating, aren't they? When they come out, that's a game changer. If that is the actual charge that they've made and they've made it stick, it'd be the written reasons.
We know so little about the specifics of this case for those reasons that it is very, very hard to understand whether Ronan McNally's case that he's been victimised holds any water, or whether the IHRB have done an extremely good and thorough regulatory job here. It remains to be seen. But however this pans out, it is going to be a watershed case.
Subscribe to Racing TV's YouTube channel now to watch more great races like this.